expressed are those of Repeal the Death Tax, a project of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, and don't necessarily reflect those of the staff or management of Cumulus Media or other partners.
We, the taxpayers, have spoken. We have made clear our goal. Now.
It's Repeal the Death Tax Petition Party on 560 KSFO. We need you. Get your petition now at repealthedeathtax.com.
Yes, go to repealthedeathtax.com and get the petition. My name is Susan Shelley. I'm the Vice President of Communications with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. And one day you're going to tell your grandchildren you were so glad that you were stuck in traffic because they're living in that house because you found out in time how to repeal the death tax on property in California. Welcome to the Repeal the Death Tax Petition Party. We are collecting signatures to put something on the ballot next November, and you can help. We are going to reverse the biggest property tax increase in the history of California, one that is targeted specifically at people who have just lost a parent. If you can imagine that. We have a new law in California that targets people who have just lost a parent. For more than 30 years, it was the case that parents could pass property to children with no change to the tax bill. And that applied to their home of any value, plus a certain amount of other property, such as a business property or a rental home, or maybe a vacation cabin, a small business, up to $1 million of assessed value of other property, plus the home, regardless of its value, passed from parents to children with no change to the tax bill. That was the case for 30 years, and now it's gone. Where did it go? Proposition 19 in 2020, which looked like it was about protecting wildfire victims, also did this. It repealed the protection for parents and children. And let me tell you how awful this is. Trusts do not protect you. Trusts protect you from all kinds of things, not from this. People thought that trusts protected you from having a tax increase on parent-child transfers, but actually it was what was then Proposition 58, which passed in 1986, and now it's gone. Now, how did Proposition 58 get on the ballot in the first place? Well, in 1978, when Proposition 13 passed and it put a cap on how high your property taxes could go every year so that you weren't taxed out of your home by taxes, by inflation pushing up the value. After a few years, people were inheriting property, and the state of California said, well, that counts as a change of ownership and we're going to reassess it. People were so upset to have their family property reassessed that the legislature stepped in and created this parent-child transfer exclusion from reassessment when the ownership changed from parents to children. It went on the ballot. It passed with 75% of the vote. And you know how many people voted against it in the legislature? 0. It was unanimously approved in the legislature to go on the ballot. It got 75% of the vote to protect parents and children transferring family property. And now it's gone. But we can put it back, and you can help. We need 1 million signatures, and we need them fast. We need them by the middle of January, and you can download the petition in your house. It's a 1-page letter-sized piece of paper. You print it out. There's complete instructions. You fill it out. You send it in. It takes you 10 minutes. And one day, your kids will be living in a house that they were able to keep because it didn't have a giant tax increase when they inherited it. This is really important. This is really important because families build wealth and pass it from generation to generation. And you want to be able to do that. You don't want to tax people out of their property when somebody passes away. What happens now is the property is reassessed to current market value when it's inherited. Current market value is very high in California. It's very high in the Bay Area. It's very high everywhere in California. And if you have long-held family property that's been protected by Prop 13, and all of a sudden it's reassessed to market value, the new tax bill starts at 1% of that market value, plus all the extra charges for bonds and parcel taxes and local things that voters have approved. So it's a huge tax bill. And this is worse than an estate tax. It's worse than an estate tax because an estate tax is once, and there's a big exclusion so it doesn't hit people of lower income. But this hits everybody. Doesn't matter how big the house is, reassessed to market value. And then the kids owe that property tax every year as a condition of keeping what they already own. This is worse than income tax. Income tax is once on the way in. Sales tax once on the way out. Property tax every year. And if you don't pay it, the state will sell your property. And that's no good. That's no good. That's not what we should have in California. We should be able to protect the next generation, build some wealth, pass that to the kids, have them pass it to their kids. The taxes go up every year. It's not like they don't go up. Even under Prop 13, your assessed value goes up 2% a year with inflation, but it's capped at 2% a year. So if the market goes up 20%, you're not taxed on an assessed value that went up 20%. You're taxed on an assessed value that went up only 2%, which is much more controlled and affordable. And a lot of people in other states would like to have that, but they don't. But we have it in California because of Proposition 13. And we have Proposition 13 because of Howard Jarvis. And the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is still around, still protecting taxpayers, still fighting against giant, horrible tax increases that force you to sell your property because you're being taxed out of it. That's just a horrible thing to have happen. Not just for homes, but also for businesses. If you own a small business, let's say you own a restaurant and you own the property that the restaurant is on, and it's a family business, and you just barely hung on during the COVID pandemic, and you have a big loan that you have to pay off because you had to build a patio and all the rest of it. And now, if the generation that owns it passes and the kids inherit it, that restaurant is reassessed to current market value, and the new tax bill, 1% of the current market value. Goodbye to the local business. Goodbye to the family-owned business. Goodbye to the little duplex with the tenants in it. Goodbye. Everything's going to be sold. And who's going to buy it? Maybe some corporation. And the little family restaurant ends up being some corporate thing, demolished and rebuilt into something with no character. This is a big deal. And the worst part of it is that voters were tricked into doing this. Voters were tricked. They thought Proposition 19 was about wildfire victims, which it was, and helping seniors move to a new home, which it was. That's fine. We're not changing that. What are we doing with this initiative? We are going to put back what was taken away. We're going to put back the parent-child transfer exclusion. And we're going to take your calls. We're going to take your calls at 415-808-5600. 415-808-5600. I'm Susan Shelley with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. This is the Repeal the Death Tax Petition Party. And we need you to go online. As soon as you get home out of the traffic, go online, download the petition at repealthedeathtax.com. You'll get a 5-page PDF file. It has 5 pages in it. It has a cover sheet that explains what's going on. It has full color instructions to show you exactly what you have to fill out. It has a flyer with helpful information and links. You need to register to vote. You have to be a registered voter to sign the petition and have it count. So you can register to vote and then sign. And then it has the funding information, which will tell you that it's being paid for by Repeal the Death Tax, a project of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. It's being paid for with small donations. If you'd like to help, we're buying a lot of advertising. We're trying to get the word out. You can go to repealthedeathtax.com, click that little donate button, and help us buy one more radio ad, one more newspaper ad, one more email blast. We're working on this to get the word out. We need 1 million signatures, 1 million signatures by the middle of January. Will you help us? You can tell everyone you know. You can text the message. You can text repealthedeathtax.com to your whole list. You can email to your whole list, repealthedeathtax.com. That's all you need to remember, repealthedeathtax.com. Everything's explained. There's an article that I wrote to explain everything that's going on here. It's really very simple. This is the initiative process that we started in 1911 in California, which allows the voters to write laws and constitutional amendments and get signatures and put them on the ballot and pass them. That's what we're doing. We are protecting taxpayers. We are protecting families. We are not interested in taxing people who have just lost a parent. Who thought that was a good idea? You know, under this, there's one exception to the reassessment, and that is if a parent's principal residence becomes the child's principal residence within 1 year, which can be very brutal. They have people just upend their lives and move within 1 year in an emotional state, having just lost a parent. You know, any financial advisor will tell you that is not the time to make a big financial decision. But under Prop 19, you have to make a big financial decision, because if you don't move into that house within 1 year, reassess to market value from the date of transfer. If you inherit a home, even if you want to sell it, from the day you inherit it to the day you close escrow, you owe those higher property taxes. When we had Proposition 58, the parent-child transfer protection, that didn't happen. The tax bill stayed the same. And as long as it took you to settle the estate, it took you to settle the estate. The tax bill didn't go up. You paid the same taxes that your parent was paying. But now, reassess to current market value, and you owe those taxes till you close escrow. That is very, very harsh. This whole thing is very, very harsh. And it's not necessary, because this is something the legislature really wanted to do. They don't like Proposition 13. They don't like protecting taxpayers. I could go on and on about all the things they're doing to try and attack Proposition 13 and attack taxpayers. But this particular thing, we have to reverse. We have to reverse. People did not know that this was in there. So it should go back on the ballot, and everybody should take a look at it in the light of day and debate it without the wildfire commercials. $50 million of commercials about wildfire victims. No one knew this was in there in the 2020 November election. This is just not right. It's just not. So we can fix this. We can fix this. And this initiative, by the way, is retroactive. That means that if you got burned by Prop 19 for a parent-child transfer, you will be able to get your original assessed value reinstated. That's really important, because a lot of people are looking at a situation where they're wondering how long they can pay those taxes. If we can pass this, if we can get this on the ballot and we can pass it in November 2024, it'll take effect in January 2025. Everyone will be able to apply to get their original Prop 13 assessed value reinstated. So that would be really good. We have a call. Let's talk to, is it Jane in South Bay? Jane in the South Bay. Hi, Jane.
Hi. Just calling. I haven't been listening to the show, so I'm not sure what you were just referencing, but I have a quick question about Prop 19 and Prop 13.
Okay.
When Prop 19 passed, I inherited a home here in California, and everything dovetailed, the timing and all of that. So Prop 19 didn't really affect me and the property. So I guess that was just lucky timing. But what I'm wondering is if ACA 1 and ACA 13 pass in 2024, will I still have the Prop 19 protection?
Those will not affect the Prop 19 issue. ACA 1 is a direct attack on Proposition 13. Now, Proposition 13 had several parts to it. Everybody's familiar with the part that holds your property taxes down, keeps your assessed value from going up, and the Prop 13 also cut the tax rate from a statewide average of 2.67% down to 1%. Everybody's familiar with that. The other part of Prop 13 was designed to make sure that lawmakers and city councils couldn't just tax the same people with another tax by a different name, essentially getting the same money. So what it required is local taxes have to go on the ballot for voter approval. And if they're for a special purpose, a particular purpose, if they promise they're going to use the money for something, that needs a 2/3 vote. Well, what ACA 1 does is cut that down. So it won't need a 2/3 vote. It'll only need 55%. And that applies to infrastructure and affordable housing. Well, what's infrastructure? Everything is infrastructure. Pay raises are infrastructure if you pour a little puddle of concrete next to them. Everything. So all these taxes, bailing out the transit system, it'll be all this stuff on the ballot every single time if ACA 1 passes, because it'll be much, much easier to raise your taxes. And a lot of those taxes are paid just by property owners, parcel taxes, bonds, just by property owners. So everybody votes, but only property owners pay. We consider this a red light alert. It's a big deal at the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. We are fighting ACA 1 very hard. And you'll be hearing from us as soon as we get a proposition number, you'll be hearing from us about that. Now, ACA 13 is a diabolical trick to prevent us from passing things that protect taxpayers. Next November, there is a qualified initiative on the ballot that is going to protect taxpayers by restoring some of the Prop 13 stuff that the courts have watered down. Well, ACA 13 attempts to make it harder to pass that. And we think that's just sneaky and rotten. So we're going to be against that also. So that's the answer to your question. We will be no on ACA 13, no on ACA 1. We will give you the proposition numbers. If you're not already a member of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, please join. Go to HJTA.org, HJTA.org. It's only $15 a year, 1-5. And we will be very happy to have you as a member and very happy to send you Taxing Times, our newsletter, and very happy to strengthen the voice of taxpayers in California, HJTA.org. And when you're there, you'll see a red flashing light at the top that says repeal the death tax, which is why we're here tonight. And one of the things I want to talk about is the importance of generational wealth. And to help me explain that, I'm so pleased to be joined by a very special guest. Dr. Rosie Milligan holds a PhD in business administration. She's an author, she's a financial coach, she's a senior estate planner, and she's the host of the Express Yourself Hour radio show every Tuesday at 10 a.m. You can listen to her on innerlightradio.com, and you can find her at drrosie.com. I'm so pleased to welcome my good friend, Dr. Rosie Milligan. Hi, Dr. Rosie. How are you tonight?
I am great. How are you, Sue?
I am fine. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's talk about the importance of generational wealth, especially in communities that have been historically disadvantaged. How has Proposition 19 affected them?
Oh my God. I have one client, the mother passed, and two sisters, they own their own home. So naturally, they couldn't leave their home and move into the house. So they were so excited to rent that home to their daughter, only to get a new bill with the increase that the tax would be $8,000 a year. They almost said, what are we going to do? My daughter, we can't increase the rent like that. My daughter can't pay that. This is so devastating. When someone work hard, sacrifice, go without, to have something to leave to the next generation, and because of Prop 19, because of the increase in tax. I mean, it came, Susan, it hurts because it came at the worst time in history, when people are doing worse than ever before, on the end of COVID, when people have lost jobs. I mean, I can't think of just that alone should send in the mind of anyone that this needs to go. This is not the time.
Exactly.
I mean, that's turning California into what do we call a rental state? Because if the people can't keep a home, every home that goes unkept in Los Angeles, but this is turned into apartments. I'm grieved of that.
It's so important to own something, because if you have let's say you have the property and you sell the property and you get the cash. Well, everybody thinks, so what, you got the cash, but the cash loses value to inflation and the property appreciates and holds its value and somebody else owns it.
Absolutely, Susan. It is so now when you think of young people who complete college with degrees and versus trying to get a home for themselves that they can bring their parents in if they had to live with them. The cycle is reversed now, that the young people have to move in with their parents, and God forbid they're living with living with the parent and can't inherit property. And particularly for those who have rental properties, they have a duplex or 4 units and only one child. I mean, it is the biggest land grab that I have witnessed in my 78 years of living.
Wow. So if let's say somebody owns a fourplex apartment and their child moves into one of the units, that doesn't protect the whole property, does it?
No, it does not. They only get, you say, 25% of reduction of what that tax would be. And many people, I would say in the Black and brown community, there's something special about how culturally, how they try to keep the rent down because they understand where it came from many of them from nothing to something. So they're very sensitive to how they raise that rent. I've noticed that, you know.
Mhm.
And so the rents are low. Now you can't raise the rent and the tax rate. So, I mean, it's going to be so much property loss. So then what happens? And we're trying to fix the homeless problem? We got a problem. I don't
Yes.
see the fixation for it. If this doesn't change, we won't be able to fix it.
Well, we have to change it, and we can change it. And
Yes.
you have the petitions at your office. And people can
Yes.
go to repealthedeathtax.com. If you're in Los Angeles and you'd like to go to Dr. Rosie's office, you can pick up the petition right there. If you don't want to print it at home, you can pick it up, or we can mail it to you.
Absolutely. I was in Marina Valley Sunday. I had to go there to do a presentation. Did I have my petition? Yes, I did. Did I walk around and make sure they had it right like we did at Consolidated, Susan?
Yes.
I did. Folks, we got to be that committed. Every place you go from now until the end, you need to have some petition in your hand. We have to, this has to happen. If not, what are we going to tell the children? What can we tell our grandchildren if we just lay low and allow this to happen? What you going to tell them?
You're going to tell them that they're going to lose the house. That's what's going to happen. They're going to get a letter from the assessor's office with the sympathy cards in the mail, and it's going to have all this bad news about this tax increase. And this is just wrong. You know, I think a lot of people thought in the political world that this would only affect rich people at the beach with mansions, that this was trust fund babies and celebrities. This is every property in California, every property.
Absolutely. And Susan, the most important thing I want people to understand, don't just sit still and say, well, I'm out of the game. I don't own a house, but you are renting. If you don't own your own home, you're renting, and it's going to impact you. Because when a person has to keep their property, they will have to raise their rent. Those who are in college, the young people in college, well, I don't have a home, I'm in college. Well, if you cannot afford to rent, because what you're going to pay for rent is what you would pay or even less for a mortgage. This is not just for homeowners' fight. Folks, this is everybody's fight. It's for those who are renting, and it is those who expect to rent or to buy a home. It's everybody's battle.
So you've talked to some of the political people in Sacramento. What have they said about this?
Well, the one that I wanted to talk to the most kind of skirted around, I just don't know, Susan. That's why I say I think it's really important for those who are not behind it. They need to be called out, and I think the people who are voting for them, anyone don't care about you having a home and your offspring. They don't care about you.
That is the truth. So you can call them. Let me tell you how to get a hold of them. Go to findyourrep.legislature.ca.gov. Findyourrep.legislature.ca.gov. And then you can put in your address and they'll tell you who represents you in Sacramento, and you can give them a call and ask them what they're doing about this and if they're going to support this effort to collect signatures to put this on the ballot.
Absolutely. If you don't care about people having a place to stay, then what else do you care about?
Exactly.
That becomes the question. It is too many homeless people, and every time you get one in a home, two are going out of a home. You know, will the state have to subsidize everyone? How many people can get Section 8? And for the big conglomerates who are building all these apartments, they know it's going to be subsidized by the city. And they will have money for their children and their children forever, while the average person will be on the outside looking in. Think about all the young people now who are living with their parents.
That is true. Well, Dr. Rosie, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. Thank you so much for all your great work. Thank you for being a pickup location for the petitions. Ladies and
Absolutely.
gentlemen, Dr. Rosie Milligan, you can find her at drrosie.com. Thank you, Dr. Rosie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back after this.
A two-car crash in Hayward, northbound 880 before Whipple. Second lane from the left. You're backed up from Alvarado Boulevard. Vallejo, 4 cars collided west 80 before Georgia Street. They're in the 2 right lanes. You are backed up from Redwood Street right now. And then San Francisco, north 101 before Hospital Curve. A stalled moving truck in the right lane. Delays from 280.
This report is sponsored by Good Samaritan Hospital. You can trust Good Samaritan Hospital to provide a safe environment to welcome your new baby. With round-the-clock expert care and a level 3 neonatal unit, the birthing center is designed to meet your unique needs. Whether your pregnancy is high risk or not, Good Samaritan Hospital is prepared to deliver.
Paid for by National Tax Advisory Services. Attention anyone that owes money to the IRS. The IRS has restarted aggressive enforcement actions against taxpayers who owe back taxes that were temporarily suspended for COVID. If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this because now is the time to clear your IRS tax debt. A special toll-free number has been established so you can stop penalty fees, avoid liens, and other hostile measures by the IRS. Call tax relief helpers right now at 800-958-7189 and get the maximum protection afforded by law.
I got behind on my taxes and owed $48,000. I didn't know what to do. I called and they got my bill lowered to just $3,500.
I owed $87,000 in taxes and it was scary. I got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
If you owe money to the IRS, don't wait another day. Call 800-958-7189 right now before the IRS enforces liens, levies, or other aggressive measures. The call and consult are absolutely free. Call now. Call 800-958-7189. 800-958-7189. 800-958-7189.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to hims.com/radio. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right, get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, hims.com/radio. That's hims.com/radio for your free online visit. HIMS.com/RADIO.
We're with little Holly McJolly. She and her husband have been elves in Santa's workshop for
30 years now.
goodness, and you can make anything.
Almost anything. We don't do flooring.
No?
No, we leave that to S&G Carpet, especially since they're having their big Christmas sale this month.
A big Christmas sale.
Right now, you can save up to 40% off select flooring.
So why make it if you can just go into any S&G showroom or have their mobile showroom come to you, just like Santa, and save up to 40%?
Yep, we do toys and small appliances, but leave carpeting and hardwood and laminate to S&G.
Understandable.
Here's Rudolph. We're getting him new waterproof core during S&G's Christmas sale. You know, easy cleanup.
I could only imagine.
Get your home ready for 2024 and save up to 40% off select new flooring during S&G Carpet's big Christmas sale. Plus, as always, get their no surprise price guarantee and promise to beat any written estimate by 10%.
S&G more than carpet.
Go to sgcarpet.com for the showroom nearest you or to have their mobile showroom come to you. Now offering tile and carpet cleaning.
Talk Radio 560 KSFO. Like us on Facebook at 560 KSFO and stay up to date on the latest events. Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
Welcome back. This is the Repeal the Death Tax Petition Party. You can call us at 415-808-5600. We're taking your calls. We're taking your questions about Proposition 19's death tax and how we're going to repeal it. I'm Susan Shelley with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. My colleague Scott Kaufman is off today. Merry Christmas to all. If you're sitting in traffic, you'll be glad you were because this is going to save your family tens of thousands of dollars a year someday. I hope that day is far away, but if you own a house or you own a business or you own a rental property and you would like your kids to inherit it and be able to hang on to it, we must repeal this death tax. Because what this death tax does is require that all the property that's inherited is reassessed to market value. You lose all the protection of Prop 13 from all those years, and it's reassessed to market value just as if it was sold to a total stranger. And we can't have that. And for decades, we had protection from that, and now it's gone. The protection is gone because of Prop 19 in 2020, which looked like it was about protecting wildfire victims, and this was in the fine print. So we are collecting signatures on petitions to put the Repeal the Death Tax Act on the November 2024 ballot. We need 1 million signatures by the 15th of January or the 16th of January. We have to have some time to process all that paperwork. So send them in. If you're collecting signatures and you have a big stack on your table, send them in, please. We have contractors who are working, going through all of them and checking the signatures to make sure they're valid and counting everything up. We have more petitions coming in than we did when we tried to do this last year, which is very good. And the numbers are increasing, which is very good, but we're not there yet. And one reason we're not there yet is because people hang on to the petitions. You know, if we do paid petition signature gathering, people turn them in at the end of the day in order to get paid. But we're not doing that because we can't afford that, because we're protecting taxpayers. And that's not a big money operation. Fleecing taxpayers is always a big money operation, but protecting them, we do this with small donations. We do this on a shoestring. So we need your help. Go to repealthedeathtax.com, download the petition. You'll see the complete instructions. You'll see a flyer. You'll see the funding sheet. You'll see the petition. The petition is 1 page, 8.5 by 11 regular letter size paper. And there's room for 2 signatures on it. And then you are your own circulator. You're the person who fills out the little thing at the bottom that says, I circulated this petition. You circulated it to yourself. That's still legal. You are the circulator, you are the signer, and then there's room for 1 more person. So you can print as many petitions as you would like. You can circulate as many petitions as you would like. Print out 10 of them. Take them to a family gathering. Explain to everybody that this will put the Repeal the Death Tax Act on the ballot for voters to look at again. Because we know that 75% of voters will support this if it's on the ballot. That's what happened last time. That's how we got it in the first place. And then we had it removed through stealth and trickery. And we are not fans of stealth and trickery at the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. We think you're entitled to a square deal, honest information on the ballot. It's one of the things the Taxpayer Protection Act will do when it's on the ballot next November. It will force everyone who's putting a tax increase on the ballot to admit that it's a tax increase on the ballot. So you can see what it is, because you're entitled to know that Prop 19 was a tax increase. They wouldn't tell you that, but it's a tax increase. And we have to reverse it. It was the biggest property tax increase in the history of California, targeted at people who just lost a parent. We have to reverse this. You just heard Dr. Rosie Milligan talking about families who have rented a property to a child in the family or to another relative. And all of a sudden, because it wasn't the principal residence of the parent, now it's reassessed to current market value. It doesn't qualify for that one narrow and limited exception. And that's the problem. So reassessed to market value, how is anybody supposed to be able to afford that? You know, I want to share some numbers with you. My colleague at the Southern California News Group, I'm a columnist with the Southern California News Group opinion team. I wear many hats. And my colleague, Jonathan Lansner, who is the business columnist, recently wrote something about how many apartments in California are corporate owned versus smaller family owned. And what he said is that there are 1.65 million renter households who live in buildings that have 20 units or more. Those are the corporate ones, most likely. 20 units or more, 1.65 million. That's only about 28% of all the rentals, all the renter households in California. Roughly 3/4 of them are in buildings that are smaller than 20 units. Now we're into the mom and pop. Now we're into the mom and pop rentals. So buildings that have between 2 and 19 units, there are 2.1 million households in buildings that are 2 to 19 units. Those are very likely to be owned by mom and pop landlords. Now, what happens if the mom and pop landlords pass away? The building is reassessed to current market value. Now what? Well, either the rents are going to go up to cover those higher expenses, or the building's going to be sold and the units will be what they call withdrawn from the market, which is a polite way of saying everybody's in the street. Everybody gets evicted. And the building is sold and probably demolished because nobody can make it work. If the rents are under rent control, nobody can make that business work with the higher taxes. And nobody can control the value of real estate in California. Nobody knows what it's going to be. Can't possibly plan for that. Crazy amounts, especially in the Bay Area, crazy high amounts for property. And now you're going to owe 1% of that crazy high amount. That's the current market value when that building is inherited. You're going to owe that plus the bonds, plus the parcel taxes, plus the local charges every year. Every year to keep that building, you are going to have to pay that higher property tax bill. What happens to the tenants? Out they go. And not just the buildings that are 2 to 19 units. You'll be surprised how many people rent one unit, either a house or a condo, but a single rental unit. 2 million renter households. 2 million renter households. When those houses are inherited and reassessed to market value, there's no way those rents stay low. There's no way. In fact, we have a comment from someone who went to our website and signed up to join our coalition who said, our family owns 2 small apartment buildings that serve low-income families. The property taxes will at least quadruple when they are passed down, requiring us to sell the properties or increase the rent. And this is how it's going to go. We could lose probably half the affordable housing in California in 1 generation. And as Jonathan Lansner wrote, these tend to be lower rents because people who have smaller rental businesses, they value having tenants that are stable. They value retaining their tenants more than raising the rent. It's different than the corporate kind of thing where they're trying to show quarterly profits. You're interested in having low hassle and good people, and you want it to be easy. So the rents tend to be lower in these 1 unit rentals or 2 to 19 rentals, but the rents can't stay low if the property taxes go up. And this is a ticking time bomb for affordable housing in California. This is a really serious problem. Let's take a call. We have Judy in San Jose. Hi, Judy.
Hi, Susan. I hope you can understand my point. A lot of the houses were gotten by the GI Bill because a parent served in the war. That built the suburbs in California. I try to vote Democrat, and anytime I hear from Democrats, I got paid back in spades. But a question just keeps sticking to me. Where does Gavin Newsom stand on this? Because whenever he has a point he wants to make, he goes out public and makes it. He is a Democrat. It's very democratic to own your own home and not have your neighborhood turn into foreign owned or rental. In fact, it's safer in the neighborhoods when there's constant generations there. So can you enlighten me on what happened to the support that could have come from the governor's office?
Well, the governor's office has had nothing to say about this. This is something the legislature put on the ballot. The governor does not have to sign a constitutional amendment proposal. If the legislature passes it with a 2/3 vote, it goes straight to the Secretary of State to go on the ballot. So the governor was not forced to take a position on it, and he has not been supportive of our efforts. You can give him a call. If you're listening to this and you want to call the governor's office in Sacramento and let him know how important this issue is to you and to your family and to your neighborhood and to the local businesses and to all the renters in the apartment buildings and in the renters who are in the single family homes, this is important to everyone in California. As Dr. Rosie was saying in the last segment, people need a place to live, and we are forcing them out with this terrible policy that the legislature put on the ballot because they wanted the money. Why did they want the money? Because they don't like Proposition 13. They don't like limits on taxation. They're going to war with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association to try to raise your property taxes. and they're slipping these things through one at a time under all of these commercials about wildfire victims or some other subterfuge. And we are here to clarify. We are here to tell you what they really did and that we have to fix it. So call the governor and go to findyourrep.legislature.ca.gov. Call your elected officials, your representative in the assembly, your representative in the state senate. But most of all, remember that this is an initiative. And all we have to do is get the signatures and it's on the ballot. We don't need any of them. We don't need any of them. This is the initiative we have had since 1911. Since 1911, we have had direct democracy powers in California. Plenty of states are jealous of this. I know we all miss the days when people were jealous of California. Not so much now, but this is something to be jealous of. We have direct democracy powers. The initiative, the referendum, and the recall. Well, you all know about what the recall is. Referendum means that the legislature has passed something and the governor has signed it and the people don't want it. And so they collect signatures and they say, we're putting this on the ballot and we will decide whether this law takes effect. That's a referendum. An initiative is when the voters themselves write the law or the constitutional amendment and collect the signatures to put it on the ballot. And then once it passes, it's as much a part of the law or the Constitution as if it dated to the gold rush. It's absolutely the law. Now, one thing about a 1911 law is that we have to use 1911 technology. So you can't sign electronically. You can't sign an electronic petition to do this. Must be paper, must be ink, must be mailed to the Howard Jarvis offices. And then we have to stack up all the paper, the originals. We can't scan them. We stack up all the paper, 1 million pieces of paper, and we put them in boxes for the 58 counties. And we drive them to the 58 counties. We don't have to use a horse. We can actually take a car, an SUV, that part. We can use a few modern technology things, but basically it's the 1911 process. It's paper and ink. So you can download the petition, but you must print it on paper. And we have it all set up so that you can print it. It will be correct. It will be legally valid. It'll have the 1-inch margin at the top that it needs. It will have the correct font sizes. This is all required in state law. Very complicated state law regulates every part of what that petition looks like. All the language that is on it has to be on it. And we made it fit. We made it fit on one page. So it's very easy to print. And it's very easy to photocopy. And it's very easy to hand them to your friends. And that's what you should do all through the holiday season. Bring them wherever you're going, where there's going to be a gathering of people, office parties, family parties. Bring the petition, get the signatures. It's really very simple. All you have to do is write the county where the signers are registered to vote, so we know which county to take it to. Because if we take it to the wrong county, it won't be valid. Then they won't think that's a registered voter. So we have to take it to the right county. So you'll see a line that says all signers of this petition must be registered to vote in blank county, just write in the county. If you have 2 signers in different counties, use 2 petitions. And then they print their name, they sign their name. We need their residential address where they are registered to vote and their city and their zip code. And that's it. And then you fill out the declaration of circulator at the bottom, which is the certification that you saw the person sign it. And that's very easy too. You just print your name and address. You write down the dates that you collected the signatures, and then you sign it. It says month is signed month, day of year at city, California, and your signature. That's just the official declaration. It takes 5 minutes. 5 minutes, it will save you tens of thousands of dollars a year. Nobody likes to think about estate planning. Nobody likes to think about having this happen. But you know what? The holidays are rough. A lot of people get through the holidays. It can be a tough emotional thing. You know, sometimes you have an empty chair at the table and it can be very difficult. If you're also dealing with this, if you're also dealing with this property tax increase, that is just appalling. That the state of California has done that to you is appalling. And we want to fix it because you should be able to transfer your property to your kids without a tax increase. It should not be treated like a sale to an outsider. where somebody comes in and voluntarily pays that amount for the property. This is a transfer to the kids. And the kids don't necessarily have the income to pay those taxes. Probably most times they don't. And how unfair is that for the younger generation to be just basically cheated out of their inheritance, forced to sell, and then they'll have the cash loses value to inflation, the property appreciates, and somebody else owns it. No to that. Go to repealthedeathtax.com, download the petition, print a bunch of copies, hand them out to your friends. So let me tell you about the top funders sheet. There's a new law. So added to the 1911 law, we have some campaign finance law. And so there is an official top funders sheet, which simply says that the petition circulation is paid for by Repeal the Death Tax, a project of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. And then it shows a link to the Secretary of State's website where the same thing is posted. So you can go to that link and scroll down and find the copy, but it's just exactly the same copy you're looking at in the file that you download. So you don't really need to go to that link, but that's where you can go if you want to check to see if there's anything more updated. So this has to be shown to everyone who signs the petition so that they know who's paying for it. But there's nothing nefarious going on here. We pay for this with small donations. We pay for this with people who are concerned about their families. And you can donate right online. Just click that donate button and go to our fundraising site, which is completely secure, and make a small donation. And we will use it to buy advertising, and we will use it to spread the word about Repeal the Death Tax. I want to emphasize again that this is retroactive. If you have been burned by one of these reassessments for a parent-child transfer, you will be able to get your original assessed value reinstated. So we can't get you a refund for taxes already paid, but we can get you the reinstated assessment so that going forward, your taxes will be lower. So that will be helpful, I think, for a lot of people. We're at 415-808-5600 if you want to give us a call. Happy to take your questions on Prop 19, on taxes, on property taxes. This is really such a complicated subject, but it's a simple solution. It's a simple solution. We need 1 million signatures by the middle of January, and we need your help to spread the word about how important this is. Because we don't want people in the street. We don't want people losing their apartments, losing their businesses, having to sell their family property. We don't want people to be going down the economic ladder. We're supposed to be going up the economic ladder, not down. And the legislature just stuck it to people. They just stuck it to people so that everybody winds up losing their Prop 13 down the line, losing their protection from higher property taxes. You know, this is not something anyone can control or predict. People who buy a house, let's say $400,000 a few years ago, and now it's worth $2 million. Well, what can they do about that? Do they have the income necessarily to pay taxes on a $2 million home? Probably not. Probably a lot of people can't afford to buy the home that they're living in already at the current prices. Does that mean we should all be taxed out of it? Does that mean the government should come in at the end of every year or at the end of every life and reassess everything and say, well, too bad, you'll just have to sell or get a loan or get a reverse mortgage or somehow otherwise burden your family to pay these taxes? What are we, all the Hearst family? Are we all the Getty family that they can come in and say, you have too much? We're not. This applies to every house, every property, little small businesses, small apartment buildings, condos that are rented, individual homes that are rented, 2 million renter households in 1 unit rentals, detached or attached, houses or condos, 2 million renter households, all at risk of being reassessed. So this is really a serious problem for everybody. It's not just homeowners or business owners, it's everybody. We have a call from Kim. Hi, Kim.
Hey, how you doing?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you. My question is simple. How long do I have to gather signatures before I need to send them to you folks?
Well, send them as you get them, because the faster you send them, the faster we can process them. That would be great, but we're trying to get them all in by January 16th.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We do need a little bit of time to put them in boxes and drive them around. So January 16th is our deadline date to send them to our Sacramento office. Thank you for the call. I want to talk a little bit about trusts. People think that trusts protect them from property tax increases. Trusts do not protect you from reassessment. Let me explain how that works. It has always been the case that assessors look through the trust as if it was made of glass. They look through the trust and they see who is the present beneficial owner of this property. And then they do the tax assessment based on that. So if you have a trust, it's true the trust never dies, but if it's the parent's trust and then it becomes the child's house in the trust, reassess to current market value. Very disappointing. A lot of people have done complicated trusts to make sure that there was money to take care of people's medical needs in the family. Sometimes there are people who have long-term care needs, and there's a rental home, and the rental income is dedicated to paying those bills. Well, it's all in the trash now, because once that's inherited and it's reassessed to market value, nobody can afford to keep it. So this is just wrecking the plans of so many families who have tried to work this out. And it's really devastating. It's devastating to lose the generational wealth that you build with real estate. We've heard stories about people who were ordinary working people. One story about a teacher, happened to be Black in Los Angeles, worked for many years, acquired a little bit of what she called a real estate empire. She owned like 4 or 5 houses and they were all rented, probably all at below market rents because she wanted to keep the tenants. And she passed away. And her kids were reassessed to market value on all those houses. It's horrible. It's horrible. The tenants are out. The houses are sold. This is one way that neighborhoods can be just instantly gentrified, and all the residents end up having to leave because the rents are all going to go up as everything gentrifies. Because people are being forced to sell who don't want to sell, but they don't have a choice because they're being taxed out of the property. You know, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association dates back to 1978. And in 1978, before Prop 13, here's how you paid taxes on property in California. You take the market value of your home every year and you multiply it by the tax rate. And the tax rate was 2.67% average in the state. Some places 3%. Now imagine paying 3% of the market value of your home every year as a condition of keeping it. Out of the question. People were being taxed out of their homes. Money was rolling into Sacramento, rolling into the Treasury. They were so happy in Sacramento. They had a surplus, $5 billion plus in 1978, $5 billion surplus. They were so happy. They wouldn't do anything for anybody who was losing their home because they were on a fixed income or they couldn't afford to pay those taxes. People getting these tax bills, the market was surging with inflation. Property values were going up 20% a year in some cases, 22% a year. And people were opening these tax bills. It was devastating. The legislature wouldn't do anything about it. So Howard Jarvis made 5 attempts to get this on the ballot, what became Prop 13. And he finally succeeded in 1978. And everyone in the government predicted it was the end of civilization as we know it. There would be no money for any kind of public services at all. Well, it was a complete lie. The voters knew it was a scare tactic. 2/3 of the voters approved Prop 13 in 1978, cut the tax rate immediately to 1% statewide, and capped how much your assessed value could rise, no more than 2% a year. And people were able to stay in California. They were able to keep their homes. And as I said earlier, a few years later, it turned out as people were inheriting homes, inflation pushing everything up, it counted as a change of ownership, reassessed to market value, and the legislature stepped in to fix it. The legislature stepped in to fix it. Well, our legislature doesn't want to fix it. Our legislature wants to tax you out of your property. We don't have to stand for it. If you're If you're not already a member of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, please join and strengthen the voice of taxpayers in California. We're at hjta.org, hjta.org, and click that little button that says see your shocking tax bill if we lost Prop 13. It will do the math for you on what you'd be paying if Prop 13 had never passed. Scary. Don't do it while you're driving, I have to tell you. So this is the Repeal the Death Tax Petition Party show. Be sure to go to repealthedeathtax.com, repealthedeathtax.com, download the petition, text, email, call your friends, give them that link, help us get 1 million signatures by January 16th, and we will get this on the ballot and we will fix this problem. And we will see you next Friday night at 6 p.m. right here on KSFO and KSFO.com. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.
Ad was paid by Repeal the Death Tax, a project of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. The views, opinions, and beliefs expressed are those of Repeal the Death Tax, a project of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, and don't necessarily reflect those of the staff or management of Cumulus